Epstein files or information related to the Epstein files. Now, this wasn't by the government. There's been moves and clamoring and pressure for the government, for the Trump administration to release the Epstein files, but they continue to fail to do so. This release was a request by the House Oversight Committee, and these files or this information, the emails, were released by the Epstein estate. And once again, it just demonstrates that there has been a cover-up in regard to the release of the Epstein files. The lack of ability or the lack of want to release them. And this just brings us back to a number of key issues. During the Biden administration, Trump and many Trump associates and many people who are now a part of the administration, including but not limited to Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, reiterated to the public that they were going to release the Epstein files. They got the public excited. They got MAGA excited, the base excited. They wanted the release of the Epstein files. They wanted to find out about this multinational blackmailing ring that leads back to Jeffrey Epstein. Many people in the last 2 years have understood that Epstein has links to Mossad, has links to Israeli intelligence, and he was using those links in order to blackmail key politicians, key influencers, key members of society, whether celebrity or whatever, to blackmail them for the state of Israel. And the push has been significant. And many people believe that they elected Trump based on transparency, based on this hope that he would release the Epstein files. He was asked a question in one interview and he said, yes, we can do that. Kash Patel went on a number of interviews and also said he would be releasing the Epstein files. Dan Bongino did the same. He said some Middle Eastern country was involved. And many Trump loyalists, such as Cernovich, were vocal in their want for the release of the Epstein files. But then what happened? Trump got elected, a major push by donors. He became the instrument of the donor class, something that he wasn't in the first administration. And as soon as he came into power, he was very clear. He was not going to release the Epstein files. He said they weren't going to be released. And later, when there was a push about it, he claimed that they were a Democrat hoax. He did not want the files to be released. Many people thought that, is it because Trump is in those files? Is it that he's protecting his donors? Is he protecting Israel? Kash Patel and Dan Bongino now were in the position as heads of the FBI. And after claiming that they wanted those files released, they told us there are no files. They told us there's nobody on the Epstein files. They told us that there's nobody involved. Epstein was involved in his own, and this wasn't some kind of blackmailing operation. Nobody was blackmailed.
Axios just reported that a 2-page memo from the Justice Department concluded that there is no evidence that Epstein kept a client list, blackmailed powerful elites, or was murdered in prison, with it then releasing both raw and enhanced videos purporting to show that nobody entered Epstein's area of the prison the night of his death. And then the memo wrapping it all up saying that no one else in the Epstein case will be charged and no further disclosures are warranted. All of which is a massive sharp reversal for FBI Director Kash Patel and Deputy Director Dan Bongino, right? Both of whom openly questioned the official narrative on Epstein as political pundits before taking office. And so, a lot of people, they just have no idea why these men would suddenly change their tune, right? Having no idea who might benefit from this being put to bed. A true mystery, some might call it. No, but of course, the big elephant in the room is the accusation that Trump is somehow implicated in the case and that his White House is covering it up, which, is something that many Democrats have long suspected. But then Elon Musk threw gasoline on that fire last month when he claimed that Trump's name was indeed in the Epstein file. Though he later deleted that post and expressed regret, saying that he went too far. Now, apparently the gloves are back on because he's been going off with posts like, what's the time? Oh, look, it's no one has been arrested o'clock again. Then reposting another user's statement that if the entire government is protecting pedophiles, it has officially become the government against the people. And then sharing a meme parroting the Trump administration saying, we will release the Epstein list, we just need more time. Then the Epstein list is on my desk. And then there is no Epstein list.
And this left us all in shock because this demonstrated a major reversal, a 180 in terms of the release of the Epstein files. And one of the things that the MAGA base is not happy with is that they want, and they don't want the administration or the government to be protecting PDF files. They don't want it whatsoever. And so for that reason, there's been a big push. If you remember, Pam Bondi, in order to make it look like they were going to release the files, she brought in MAGA influencers who really were the Zionists, were people like Libs of TikTok, Jewish Zionist, DC Drano, Zionist, various other Zionists. They brought them into the White House and gave them a binder with the claim that the Epstein files were going to be released, but there was nothing. It was a nothing burger. Nothing was released. The people were duped. The people were scammed. The people were manipulated. Nothing was released. And over time, as Trump has continued to fail in policy after policy after policy, and being Israel first in his decision-making, in his policies, in the direction of the government, more and more people have questioned the Trump administration and questioned MAGA. And specifically, I've not been happy about the Epstein files and or the lack of release of the
Asking for
Epstein
justice.
files.
CNN's Harry Enton is here with us. Now, look, when you you hear from the victims, it is very clear what they want. They've made that clear again and again. What does the American public think about how Donald Trump has been handling the Epstein files compared to all the other issues that he brought up during the campaign?
Yeah, you know, Donald Trump is underwater on basically every single issue he ran on in 2024. But the Epstein files, the Epstein case, are especially dreadful for him. What are we talking about here? Well, let's take a look at Trump's net approval rating on the issue. Look, they're all in red. They're all in the negative territory. But on immigration, you know, he's 5 points underwater. Foreign policy, 8 points. Trade and tariffs, he's 17 points. The economy, 18 points. But look at the Epstein case. He is 39 points below water on the Epstein case. His net approval is 39 points in the negative. My goodness gracious. What Donald Trump has been selling on the Epstein files, the Epstein case, the American people, simply put, have not been buying at all, Sarah Seidner.
And then we had a release where Trump was sending birthday messages to Epstein, and their connection was being highlighted more than anything else. And so we're left with a situation today where there was a release, and it does highlight a number of key things. Now, that release does beg the question, what is Trump's involvement? I think one cannot deny that Trump was friends with Epstein. He was friends with Ghislaine Maxwell. We know Ghislaine Maxwell has been given the lightest of sentences there can be. Apparently, her prison is like a 5-star luxury resort, something that likely was given to her in order to keep Trump away from any connection to Epstein. She went to give an interview to, I believe it was the FBI, the DHS, and she quite clearly said that Trump had zero connection. Then she was transferred to a luxury resort, which is considered a prison. We know that Trump and Epstein were friends, as I said. They were connected. They did business together. It does seem like Trump was aware of many of the things that were happening in relation to Epstein, the extent to which is debated by Trump loyalists. But was he abusing women? Was he taking advantage of children? This is a question that at the moment we've not seen any evidence for. Just being completely unbiased as possible when we're reporting this information. And people have been clamoring for the Epstein files. It's by the House Oversight Committee. The House Oversight Committee released the Epstein information because they demanded it from the Epstein estate. And though this information came from the Epstein estate, not from the government or the Trump administration, there's been a major push today to have the release of the files. When they say files, the Epstein information. And Trump allegedly, or the Trump administration, called Lauren Boebert and apparently pressured her to stay on course and to vote against the release. But the Democrats had the numbers to get the release, and therefore today there was a vote that was placed in order to have a vote next week to release the Epstein file. So that's going to happen next week. We'll see if the government releases it. We'll see the people who vote no against the release, and this is upcoming next week. That being said, what do we have today? Let's look at some of the information that was released. The first piece of information that was released was this email, and it says, and there were 3 separate emails released today, spanning over 8 years, that directly link Trump to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell after he claimed that he'd broken off all ties with Jeffrey Epstein. For example, he claimed, I believe it was 2007, that he cut off all connection with them. So this was an email by Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell. This email was sent on April the 2nd, 2011. And the email said, I want you to realize that the dog hasn't barked is Trump. Victim, the name that's redacted, spent hours at my house with him. He has never once been mentioned. Please, chief, etc. I'm 70% there. And Ghislaine Maxwell responded, I have been thinking about that. In 2015, there was another email. This time the email was from Michael Wolff to Epstein. And Michael Wolff is someone who's been exposed by these Epstein files because he's been mentioned, and it's quite clear based on these emails, he was aware of the abuse that was occurring, and he was part of Epstein trying to blackmail Trump. But he said this from Wolff to Epstein. He said, I think you should let him hang himself, in referring to Trump. If he says he hasn't been on the plane or to the house, then that gives you a valuable PR and political currency. You can hang him in a way that potentially generates a positive benefit for you. And if it really looks like he could win, you could save him, generating a debt. Of course, it is possible that when he is asked, he'll say Jeffrey is a great guy and has gotten a raw deal and is a victim of political correctness, which is to be outlawed in a Trump regime. So quite clearly, this is an example of blackmailing. This is an example of them trying to use leverage against Trump. And it does seem like in this email, they both are aware of Trump attending the house and the plane of Jeffrey Epstein. The last email, which is in 2019, this is from Jeffrey Epstein to Wolf. He says, victim at Mar-a-Lago, something, Trump said he asked me to resign. Never a member ever. Of course he knew about the girls. So he asked Ghislaine to stop. So this is saying that he was aware of what was happening in Mar-a-Lago in terms of Jeffrey Epstein and the information that was being relayed. So quite clearly, when it comes to the Epstein files, it's not great. It's not in terms of the information that's been leaked. The second email, or the second piece of information, is an email from Jeffrey Epstein to Tom Barrack. Tom Barrack, as you know, is the special envoy to Syria. And he's in Lebanon right now, negotiating Hezbollah in order to make them disarm for the state of Israel. And if you see it, the videos that came out a couple of months ago, he's very aggressive against the Lebanese people. He insulted them. He wanted Hezbollah to disarm. And the only reason they want Hezbollah to disarm is for the state of Israel. Well, he said this. He said, Jeffrey Epstein said to Tom Barrack, send photos of you and child. Make me smile. Again, another example of possibly another member of the Trump administration may possibly being blackmailed. Someone who is key in terms of ensuring Israeli interests in the Middle East. Once again, going back to the point that this was a blackmailing operation for Israel, it was a blackmailing operation for the Zionist state. And this is multifaceted, and a good example is this email to Tom Barrack. So I thought that was extremely interesting. We also had this email, and this was a 2014 email from Jeffrey Epstein to former Obama attorney Kathy Rumler, who now is the general counsel of Goldman Sachs. And she reveals something shocking, or something shocking is revealed. This is an email from her to Jeffrey Epstein. Quote, doesn't look like you are prioritizing your schedule very effectively. How are you going to manage all of this? This is Unga week, so the boss will be in town too. I'll be here all week. You may get sick of me. Just sat down on the train, so can't talk freely. This is an email to Epstein, and Epstein's email before that wrote, girls, question mark, careful, I will renew an old habit. This week, Thiel, referring to Peter Thiel, Summers, Bill Burns, Gordon Brown being the ex-Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Labour guy, left-wing allegedly, Jagland, Council of Europe and Nobel chairman, Mongolia Press, Hadi Puri, Indian, Boris, Gates, Abba, Qatar, Sultan from Dubai, Coslin, Harvard, Leon Black, Woody, your welcome guest at any. Also, if you think there are interesting people in town, everyone here for the climate summit, Clinton, Security Council, holy shit, I'm on something for the next 30 minutes. That shows the people that were implicated in this, including but not limited to Bill Gates, William Burns of the CIA, Peter Thiel, who literally controls the vice president of the United States of America. But now you can see this interconnected web. It's a lot deeper than what was ever professed. Continues. This is from Wolf. This is an email that was sent in 2016. And this is from Michael Wolff to Jeffrey Epstein. And it says, quote, high priority. There's an opportunity to come forward this week and talk about Trump in such a way that would garner you great sympathy and help finish him. Interested? So this was in 2016, 29th of October. So days before the election. An email was sent by Michael Wolff to Jeffrey Epstein in order to take him out, in order to take Trump out. Another email that comes through is from Peter Sagal. Jeffrey Epstein emailed publicist Peter Sagal urging her to use her media contacts to discredit Virginia Giuffre, the person who accused Prince Andrew, and possibly had connection to Trump. And so the aim to discredit her started very early on. This is in 2011. The email goes like this. This is from Jeffrey Epstein to Peggy Sagal. I think a great opportunity has arisen. Just like the headlines of a hotel maid now proven to have lied in the Strauss-Kahn case, the girl who accused Prince Andrew can also be easily proven to be a liar. I think Buckingham Palace would love it. You should task someone to investigate the girl, redacted, but I think we know it's Virginia Giuffre, that has caused the Queen's son all this aggro. I promise you she is a fraud. You and I will be able to go to Ascot for the rest of our lives. I know there is a public police report that no one has had the courage to publish, as they do not want to be seen attacking a victim, but being falsely accused will be the new headline. So he's talking to a publicist about how they can engineer the situation. And then Peter Sagal writes, if you rewrite your last email in better grammar and so have a better understanding, I can cut and paste it and send it to Ariana Huffington from me. Ariana Huffington. Did you know why Prince Albert's Charlene fled to the airport with one-way ticket back to South Africa? Because she found out about a third illegitimate child that is 3 months old. The palace officials followed her to the airport and probably made her an offer she could not refuse. We'll get the details from Jim Coleman when he comes home Sunday night in Southampton now, Peg. And then Trump came out, and Trump was not happy. Trump came out with a statement, and what did he say? He said once again, in order to hide any connection to Jeffrey Epstein, he said it's a Democrat hoax. This is what he said. He said, the Democrats are trying to bring up the Jeffrey Epstein hoax again because they'll do anything at all to deflect how badly they've done on the shutdown and so many other subjects. Only a very bad or stupid Republican would fall into that trap. The Democrat cost our country $1.5 trillion with their recent antics of viciously closing our country, while at the same time putting many at risk. And they should pay a fair price. There should be no deflections to Epstein or anything else. And any Republican involved should be focused only on opening our country and fixing the massive damage caused by the Democrats. This was a Trump statement. So once again, attacking the Democrats, claiming it's a Democrat hoax. And I mentioned about Lauren Boebert. Lauren Boebert was pushed in order to vote against the release of the Epstein files. And the White House spokesperson was asked about this, Levette. This is what she said.
Transparency, Caroline, why are White House officials then meeting with Representative Boebert in an effort to try and get her to not sign this petition calling for the release of the files?
Doesn't it show transparency that members of the Trump administration are willing to brief members of Congress whenever they please? Doesn't that show our level of transparency? Doesn't that show the level of transparency when we are willing to sit down with members of Congress and address their concerns? That's a defining factor of transparency. Having discussions with members of Congress about various issues, and I'm not going to detail conversations that took place in the Situation Room in the press briefing room. Reagan.
I have a question about cover.
And so that was being asked about Lauren Boebert. So again, another cover-up, another example of them trying to hide Trump's involvement, or in this case, not wanting to release the Epstein files from someone to Jeffrey Epstein. And he said, I'm at the door, but I will wait for my time. I don't want to come early to find Trump in your house. And he wrote, yes. Sorry, that is 25122 from the gate. So people claim that this is what seems to indicate that Trump was visiting there regularly. Although on the other side, one may argue that this was just a joke to say, oh, Trump is a Fed. But what we know is that the Trump administration is facing a high level of pressure in order to release the Epstein files, and they're failing to do so. Completely unacceptable. And it shows that, once again, you can't trust Trump. And he is likely being blackmailed, either for himself or for others.